Fear in the 1970s started feeling theatrical and started feeling invasive, like something crawling out of the screen and into public life. This was a decade shaped by political scandal, post-war trauma, collapsing trust in institutions, and a growing suspicion that authority figures could not protect anyone. Horror filmmakers tapped directly into that unease. They pushed boundaries of sexuality, violence, religion, and psychology in ways that felt confrontational rather than entertaining. Audiences did not simply watch these films, they reacted to them with outrage, protests, bans, and heated debates in newspapers and courtrooms. Governments seized prints. Religious leaders denounced studios. Critics accused directors of poisoning culture. In some cases, filmmakers were arrested or threatened. These movies did not quietly disturb viewers and fade away. They ignited real-world firestorms. What follows are 10 different 70s horror films that triggered genuine controversy, censorship battles, and moral panic far beyond the theater walls. The Brood, 1979. Directed by David Cronenberg, The Brood shocked audiences with its grotesque fusion of psychology and body horror. The story centers on experimental psychotherapy that externalizes rage into deformed, childlike creatures. Its graphic violence involving children ignited immediate backlash, with critics calling it tasteless and exploitative. Canadian authorities scrutinized the film closely, and some regions restricted screenings. Cronenberg's unflinching imagery, including disturbing birth sequences, fueled accusations of misogyny and emotional cruelty. The film arrived during heated debates about the impact of screen violence on families, intensifying its reception. Many viewers were unsettled not only by the gore, but by the clinical tone suggesting trauma could physically mutate the body. Over time, critics re-examined it as a metaphor for divorce and repressed anger, yet its initial release was clouded by outrage. The Brood became a lightning rod for arguments about artistic freedom versus psychological harm in horror cinema. The Omen, 1976. When The Omen premiered, stories of cursed productions and ominous accidents fueled public hysteria. Directed by Richard Donner, the film portrayed the Antichrist as an innocent child within a powerful political family. Religious groups protested its depiction of biblical prophecy and satanic conspiracy. Some churches warned congregations against viewing it, claiming it glorified evil. The marketing campaign leaned into rumors of supernatural misfortune during filming, intensifying fascination and fear. Graphic death scenes shocked audiences, and several countries imposed censorship cuts. Critics debated whether it exploited religious anxiety for profit. Despite backlash, it became a massive box office success. The controversy strengthened its cultural impact, embedding it in discussions about faith, fear, and media sensationalism. The Omen demonstrated how horror intertwined with real-world belief systems could spark panic that extended far beyond cinematic thrills. Carrie, 1976. Adapted from Stephen King's novel and directed by Brian De Palma, Carrie stirred controversy over its blend of teen sexuality, religious fanaticism, and graphic revenge. The climactic prom massacre shocked viewers with sudden brutality. Religious organizations criticized its portrayal of a fanatical mother and supernatural vengeance. Some school boards debated whether the film exploited adolescent trauma. Sissy Spacek's intense performance made the humiliation feel disturbingly real. Critics were divided between acclaim for its craft and concern over its violence. The film's frank depiction of menstruation also sparked discomfort and censorship in certain territories. Despite objections, Carrie became a defining horror success. Its controversy highlighted cultural anxieties about female power, repression, and bullying. The debates surrounding its release ensured it remained central to conversations about horror's social influence. The Last House on the Beach, 1978. This Italian exploitation horror, directed by Mario Bianchi, provoked outrage for its graphic violence and sexual brutality. Marketed under multiple titles, it was quickly banned in the United Kingdom and placed on the Video Nasties list. Critics condemned it as nihilistic exploitation with no artistic merit. Authorities seized copies and distributors faced legal threats. The film's unrelenting cruelty towards its victims sparked intense moral debate about the limits of cinematic depiction. Even hardened horror audiences found it excessive. Supporters argued that it reflected societal decay, but such defenses rarely softened condemnation. Its notoriety grew precisely because it was difficult to see legally. The Last House on the Beach became emblematic of the era's censorship battles, representing fears that home video would spread extreme content unchecked. The controversy overshadowed everything else, ensuring its legacy remained inseparable from legal suppression and public disgust.
Rabbid, 1977. Another unsettling work from David Cronenberg, Rabbid generated headlines for casting adult film actress Marilyn Chambers in the lead role. Her presence alone provoked moral outrage before audiences even saw the film. The story of a woman developing a parasitic infection that spreads violent contagion amplified fears during an era anxious about disease and bodily autonomy. Graphic feeding scenes and surgical imagery disturbed critics. Some theaters refused to screen it due to Chambers' notoriety. Religious groups decried it as immoral exploitation. Yet others viewed it as a chilling commentary on medical experimentation and social panic. The controversy fueled curiosity, helping it find an audience despite censorship hurdles. Rabbid exemplified how taboo casting choices and visceral horror could combine to spark debates extending well beyond genre boundaries.
Sesperia, 1977. Dario Argento unleashed a nightmare of color and violence that stunned international audiences. Sesperia's vivid lighting and operatic murder sequences pushed gore into surreal territory. Several countries demanded cuts due to its graphic deaths, and censors objected to its stylized brutality involving young women at a ballet academy. The film's marketing emphasized shock value, amplifying public alarm. Critics were divided, some praising its artistry, while others condemning it as sadistic spectacle. Rumors circulated about audience members fainting during early screenings. Religious commentators criticized its occult themes and depiction of witchcraft. Despite censorship battles, the film became a cult phenomenon, influencing generations of horror directors. The controversy stemmed from its refusal to dilute violence with moral reassurance. Sesperia felt like a fever dream, unconcerned with mainstream approval. Its clash with censors cemented its legacy as one of the most visually audacious and divisive horror films of the decade.
Straw Dogs, 1971. Though often labeled a thriller, Straw Dogs ignited horror-level outrage upon release. Directed by Sam Peckinpah, the film depicted escalating brutality in a rural English village. Its controversial assault sequence triggered protests and fierce critical condemnation. Many accused Peckinpah of glamorizing sexual violence, while defenders argued he was exposing toxic masculinity and societal breakdown. The British Board of Film Censors demanded cuts, and the film faced bans in multiple territories. Dustin Hoffman's transformation from passive academic to violent defender unsettled audiences already grappling with changing gender roles. The debate extended beyond cinema into discussions about censorship and moral responsibility. Newspapers ran heated editorials questioning whether the film crossed ethical lines. Over time, Straw Dogs was reassessed as a complex study of aggression and power, yet its initial reception remains one of the most explosive controversies in 70s genre filmmaking.
Martin, 1977. George A. Romero followed his zombie success with this bleak reimagining of vampirism. Martin presented its protagonist as possibly delusional rather than supernatural, unsettling audiences expecting traditional horror. Its stark violence and ambiguous psychology disturbed critics. Some accused it of nihilism and moral emptiness. The film's depiction of addiction and alienation felt uncomfortably realistic, stripping away Gothic fantasy. Religious viewers objected to its reinterpretation of sacred vampire lore. Limited distribution and censorship challenges hindered its reach. Over time, it gained critical respect, but its initial release was marked by confusion and discomfort. Romero's refusal to clarify whether Martin was truly a monster fueled debate. The film's controversy centered on its bleak worldview and refusal to provide clear moral boundaries, pushing horror into psychologically ambiguous territory, rarely embraced by mainstream audiences.
Deep Red, 1975. Known in Italy as Profondo Rosso, this Dario Argento thriller horrified censors with its elaborate murder sequences. The film's graphic stabbings and lingering camera work were deemed excessive in multiple countries. Censorship boards demanded cuts before allowing theatrical release. Critics debated whether Argento's stylish approach beautified violence. The film's shocking child-related revelations intensified discomfort. Despite resistance, audiences were captivated by its mystery and operatic intensity. Argento's bold visual style clashed with conservative standards of the time. Deep red became a centerpiece in arguments over whether stylization mitigated or magnified brutality. The controversy surrounding its release strengthened its reputation among horror fans. What some dismissed as gratuitous, others praised as groundbreaking. Its censorship struggles helped define the giallo genre's confrontational relationship with international regulators throughout the decade.
Tourist Trap, 1979. Tourist Trap unsettled audiences with its eerie mannequins and telekinetic violence. Directed by David Schmoller, the film's uncanny atmosphere disturbed viewers expecting conventional slasher thrills. Its depiction of immobilized victims and grotesque facial distortions drew criticism for psychological cruelty. Some censors questioned its suitability for younger audiences due to intense scenes of terror. Though not as graphically violent as other films of the decade, its sustained dread and surreal tone provoked discomfort. Critics were divided, with some labeling it exploitative, while others praised its originality. The film struggled for mainstream acceptance, but gained cult recognition over time. Controversy arose from its unsettling imagery rather than overt gore, proving that horror could spark backlash through atmosphere alone. Tourist Trap's uneasy reception reflected broader anxieties about how far psychological terror could go before crossing moral lines.
By the end of the 1970s, horror had permanently altered its relationship with society. These films were not quiet entertainments consumed and forgotten. They provoked censorship boards into action, inspired protests, and ignited arguments about artistic responsibility that continue today. Some were accused of corruption. Others were defended as necessary reflections of cultural anxiety. What united them was their refusal to play safe. They confronted religion, sexuality, violence, disease, and psychological collapse without apology. In doing so, they exposed the fragile boundary between fiction and public reaction. Controversy became a marketing tool, but it also became a genuine cultural battleground. The debates surrounding these films shaped rating systems, distribution practices, and censorship policies worldwide. Decades later, their reputations remain inseparable from outrage and fascination. 70s horror did more than frighten audiences. It forced society to argue about fear itself and who controls the images projected onto the screen.